Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Legion Beta second pass look at the Vengeance Demon Hunter. So, the first of the two new specs added to the game via the Demon Hunter class. They wield the War Blades, the Aldraki War Blades. They are like bladed tonfas, basically. They look pretty damn sweet. And before you all freak out, our Demon Hunter we have here, his name is Testglaive. He's brand new. He's fresh out the temple, as it were. No tattoos yet, no blindfold, and no horns, because he's not that demonic. So don't freak out, okay? All right? Or you freak out, it's fine. If you are picking up what the comment section down below might be, start thinking about names. That's all I'm going to say. But we'll go over all of the basic spellbook, we'll go over all of the artifact stuff, and we'll go over all of the talents just to see how things all are shaping out here. There was a gigantic post just the other day about the launch fixes to rebalance the game when it comes out on the pre-patch anyway, on the 19th. But again, everyone's being tuned up or tuned down, so like when you see yourself being like nerfed, don't freak out, because everything is going to be like relatively squished together, right? And of course, if you want to see my notes, my bugs that I had found, and the VOD for the entire testing stream that is listed down below in the video description box, there are a couple of threads that are very important to look at if you are a tank, even if you are a warrior, for example. They go over the pain and rage generation values because those have changed recently. There's also a whole bunch of stuff about a Google document being put together by some community members about like theory crafting the Vengeance Demon Hunter. That's all down there as well. That's still, of course, being worked on. And then there's also a blue post talking about shear and how it works with generating lesser soul fragments. But enough about that. Let's head over to the target dummies. Oh, come on! You know Demon Hunters would ride this. Are you kidding? Demon Hunters would totally ride the motorcycles because they're Demon Hunters. They are badasses. Oh, man. I know. It's so good. Only if you're a Demon Hunter. You can never ride the... If you're a Horde, you can ride your trike all day. But if you're Alliance, you can only ride your weird battle tank sworded bug motorcycle only if you're a Demon Hunter. Because that way it looks awesome. Only then, okay? Only then. Just show off some spell animations real quick here, and then we'll dive into all the things and the stuff. Just kind of hitting buttons right now, just showing off how things look. Metamorphosis. Oh, yeah. But as a tank overall, because I might be playing Havoc as my main ult in Legion for split runs, the Vengeance Demon Hunter, right, is a tank. It plays very much DPS-like, but I guess all tanks kind of do. It's funny. The better you are as a tank doing your DPS rotation, the better you will be at mitigating damage. Which is kind of strange, but that's the way that Legion is being balanced. The better you are at tanking, right, then you have to be better at doing DPS. I said that backwards. You have to be better at doing DPS than you are at tanking for the first off, because doing damage properly helps you tank more efficiently. So that is how it works. We're going to take these off here. For more showing off of abilities, we're going to grab this long sword and this, let's do this scimitar. Scimitar? That looks like, blah. Let's do the little short sword here. Excuse me? Excuse me? Oh, it's the cutlass. Never mind. We're good. So, before you freak out, yes, weapon skills for the Demon Hunters are Warglaives, of course, or War Blades in the case of the Aldraki War Blades. But they can also use daggers and fist weapons, axes and swords that are both one-handed. So things look fine. Like the animations work with swords. They look fine. They all work together. They must have gone through and made sure they connect all the dots. These are just two crappy white swords from Stormwind somewhere. But if you want to use swords or axes or fist weapons or daggers, I don't know why you'd want to use daggers. I have no idea. Because your damage would be so nerfed because you'd be doing so little damage. Anyway, swords definitely do work though. Like the pose still works for everything. It's fine. So their spellbook is really simple. I mean, they have only 2 pages, just hard luck. Of course, if you see anything that is a talent here, that is, of course, from the talents that I have selected. We'll go over all those in the future. Shattered souls, however. Killing a target will sometimes shatter their soul, leaving a soul fragment behind for 20 seconds. Keep in mind, this is called a soul fragment. Your other resource you have is lesser soul fragments. So you actually have, these are from killing a target, and then lesser soul fragments are from shear. Also, a soul fragment will consume when you approach it, healing you for a large amount of your health. These are only the ones that die from the mobs. The ones that come off with shear are much weaker. And then consuming a demon's soul will grant you a 20% increase in damage for 15 seconds. Your mastery is Fell Blood, where demon spikes reduce physical damage taken by an additional amount, and also increase your attack power by an additional amount as well. I don't know why the math here is like 1 is rounded down, like the 9% for attack power is rounded down, I guess, which doesn't make any sense, but it might just be like not showing the decimal place. But your attack power increases all of the things that heal you, which is important to note. But stat-wise, there's a lot of this back and forth. This is all over the thread, and the Google document I was looking at, and during testing, people like, I don't know. So there are a couple different ways to look at it. Apparently, for survivability, you want to go versatility first, because it increases your flat damage, which will increase your healing. It also increases some of the healing you do. Some of your abilities that heal you are increased by versatility. Others are only increased by your damage. And also reduces all the damage you take. You are a leather-based class. You are like a parry dodge and then just like healing-based oriented class. So even with your passive, I'll go over in a moment, you only have so much armor. Right, that I made like the crappy PvP starting gear, right? So you can ignore that for the most part right now. But, so versatility, and then haste to 50% for the global cooldown reduction to 1 second. And then crit, and then agility for whatever reason, and then mastery being last. Your mastery apparently is really weak because it only increases the physical damage reduction you take, or you don't take rather. However, it does increase your attack power, which again influences how much you get healed for by your lesser souls and your soul fragments. So they'll still figure it out. I mean, there's also things like here for single target damage, you want to focus on crit equals mastery equals verse greater than haste. Or for AoE, is that mastery is greater than crit, which equals versatility, which is greater than haste. Or then there's like, it might just be haste to 50%, then mastery versus crit. Because crit only gives you damage and parry. Critical strike chance gives you parry, which is great. Agility gives you dodge, which will get just naturally on your gear. But it feels like haste because of the reduction in certain abilities and the global cooldown is very important. And then mastery, because it's flat physical damage reduction. Most of the time you are taking physical damage from bosses before you take any magic damage. The attack power bonus for more damage and for more healing through your artifact and for more healing through abilities that heal you and for more healing through your little fragments there. And then verse for the aforementioned abilities, and then crit because it's just parry and damage. But so the jury's still out on the stat priority for the Vengeance Demon Hunter, even though all tanks right now love versatility because it's flat damage, flat increased healing, or absorb is on yourself, and then just flat reduction in damage taken. So what's not to like right there? It just scales slower. That's why people don't like it, because it scales slower. You have double jump, of course. Double jump. Double jump, double jump, double jump. Anyone? Double jump. So yeah, double jump, and then of course, if you double jump and hit it again at your apex of your jump, you will start your glide. You can activate glide. Oops, I got stuck there. You can activate glide anytime you want by actually binding the ability, which, when we get into Havoc later, that's one of the problems that people have been finding out with Havoc is that my camera moved a little bit. That's weird. The fact that you can have glide as an ability is kind of a bad thing because you utilize it in like really awkward situations to cancel abilities, but people want it to be just bound on the spacebar interaction with your double jumping, and then your spacebar again gives you your wings. So I'm not sure. And for those that are wondering, I'll just go to Metamorphosis real quick here. When you glide, when you're meta, you just kind of like float, like with like fell energy holds you up kind of thing. Looks kind of funny, but this was put in recently for both the Demon Hunters that your wings no longer spawn for Vengeance. I believe they still spawn for Havoc, but for Vengeance, your wings don't spawn. You just kind of float with like green fell energy around you, which, you know, is what it is. And then demonic wards. This is your tanking passive. So your tattoos. Your tattoos reduce magic damage taken by a flat 10% and increase your stamina by 45% and your armor by 120%. So even with that huge armor amplification, you still have like kind of okay-ish armor. Your leather tank again, right? You're wearing leather. But the huge stamina increase is really important because it scales with your artifacts, because your artifact, let me put it on real quick. Your artifact, of course, 34 of 34, does give you increased stamina per point up to 34. You gain a little bit of extra damage per trait up to 34. And then your paragoning ability gives you increased total health. 5% at the first point, and then the next 19 points would give you an extra 10%. So you'd be at 15% more HP overall. But that'll scale nicely. And then, other than that, you have Torment, which is your ranged taunt. You have Throw Glaive, which causes very little damage, but has a very short cooldown reduced by haste. 30-yard range. The glaive can ricochet up to 2 additional enemies within 10 yards, generating high threat. So any bouncing ability like this, it's kind of like the Avengers shield mechanic. Do remember that every time you throw it at something, it picks a target within a circle around, like a radius around that target within 8 yards to bounce. So right now, if I throw it at the Dungeon Eater something on the left or the right here, it'll bounce to every target. But throwing at the middle target here will bounce to the left or the right, I guess sometimes, but it's based on proximity. And then we'll no longer bounce from this target to this one because they can't go back to the same target it's already bounced to. So keep that in mind when you are AoEing or pulling with this. It shouldn't matter too much unless their mobs are like, you know, in a pack that's not ready yet to pull, like they're standing still. So Spectral Sight, it's a 30-second cooldown, lasts for 10 seconds where you can see enemies and treasures through physical barriers, as well as enemies that are stealthed and invisible. You'll also be reduced to 70% of your movement speed. Not sure why I didn't say that on the tooltip, but you are slowed when you use it. And attacking or taking damage disrupts the sight itself. So kind of a neat little flavor ability there for the Demon Hunter. Then you have all of your rotational abilities. We'll jump into all of those, and we'll jump into all of your sigils. So your main ability is called Shear. This costs nothing, generates 10 pain, has just a global cooldown, does physical damage, and has a small chance to shatter a lesser soul fragment from your target that heals you, because they're lesser soul fragments, right? For an amount when consumed, which you can consume them by walking over them, right? Or you can consume all of your soul fragments by using the ability called Soul Cleave. Soul Cleave is now 30 to 60 pain. The damage is increased from 30 to 60, from a 50% on the tooltip to the full amount on the tooltip, based on the actual pain you do utilize from the ability. And you heal yourself for a flat amount based on pain spent as well, and you'll also consume the soul fragments within 20 yards. Soul fragments, you can have up to 5 lesser soul fragments. If you do actually land killing blows and kill targets, you can have lesser soul fragments to 5 and the regular soul fragments as well. So you see here, you'll consume soul, you pull in all those souls around you, and Soul Cleave will also do damage, and Soul Cleave also heals you for a flat amount. So that's how you utilize the main rotation. You'll be shearing on cooldown as it normally would be to generate pain. You generate pain as well from taking damage. But again, check out the forum post for all the math involved with how you generate pain from taking damage. It's very mathy. And if you don't care, you get hit in the face, you generate some pain. That's about it. That's all you really need to know. But pain and rage were having problems where if you had more and more stamina, then it was actually bad. But now they have fixed that. Stamina stacking and the natural growth of a tank's toughness overall based on their HP and armor is fine. You're never going to gain less pain or rage from having more and more HP. They have fixed that. So yeah, Soul Cleave, when you need to heal yourself or when you're doing more damage. Soul Cleave is also a frontal cleave, where it does have like a 120 degree like frontal area of effect. So like right about here, see? 120 degrees would be like a big wide pie slice from the middle of your character outward. I don't think it's 8 yards, though. Just in front of you, I do believe it's only about 8 yards. Let me check over here. Yeah, about 8, maybe. If I go over here to this far target, I mean, I don't think I can hit all 3 of them anymore. Double check. Yeah, see. So you see about the distance it is that you soul cleave, but it is AoE and healing, and you pull in all your lesser soul fragments. Additionally, you have Immolation Aura. Immolation Aura is one of the other ways you can generate pain. So the cooldown is 15 seconds reduced by haste. You engulf yourself in flame, instantly causing a burst of fire damage, and then to 8 yards around you, and then radiating fire damage every second for 6 seconds, and it generates 20 pain over the 6 seconds. It generates pain it generates pain in a different order. It gives you a burst of pain, and then it goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So 8 pain on cast, and then an additional 12 over the course of the 6 ticks. That is how the Immolation Aura works. And then all you have up to bat, again, you have your Glaive Toss. You have your immobility and damage. Technically, Infernal Strike can be used for damage. You leap through the air at the target location, dealing an amount of fire damage to all enemies within 6 yards. It has no minimum range, so you can leap on yourself. That's why I said it could be used for damage. Or it is basically a 30-yard, no minimum range heroic leap that does fire damage when you land. Keep in mind that it does fire damage, though. That'll come into play later. I'll go over all your sigils at once when I do everything else. Imprison is you can imprison a demon for 1 minute. Damage will cancel the effect limit to 1 target. So this is an instant 10-second cooldown demon sap, basically. Or demon stun, whatever you want to call it. But that is your way you can CC demons. Get Infernal Strike. Wow. You have Fiery Brand. 30-yard range, 1 minute cooldown. This actually does a ton of damage where you brand an enemy with a demonic symbol, instantly dealing a ton of fire damage, and then reducing the damage they do to you by 40% for 8 seconds. This is a single target, unless you talent later on. Large damage chunk, and then it's basically a single target demoralizing shout, where they will do 40% less damage to the branding demon hunter. What is one of your actual cooldowns there? Another one of your rotational cooldowns is Empowered Wards. Basically, it's just Mark of Ursal. So it's a cooldown that only has a 20-second cooldown with no cost. Reduces magic damage taken by 30% for 6 seconds. That's it. So this is your rotational ability to reduce magic damage taken. Of course, it would stack in a way with Demonic Wards, but they are all multiplicative bonuses. They are not additive. As far as I know, anyway. You have Demon Spikes. This is your main use rotational reduction in damage. Demon Spikes. It costs 20 pain with a 15-second recharge, same as your Immolation Aura, where you surge with Fell Power, increasing your parry chance by 20% and reducing physical damage taken by also 20%. But it's rounded down-ish. There's energy there. For 6 seconds. I don't have my Warblades on, so that dummy's gonna destroy me. But overall, you'll be using it kind of like a shield block. It almost has permanent uptime with some talent builds, but those are your Demon Spikes. Let me heal myself real quick. I can't even use bandages on this character because I don't have enough first aid. Darkness, a 3-minute cooldown where you summon darkness around you in an 8-yard radius, cloaking friendly targets and granting a 15% chance to avoid all damage from an attack. Lasts for 8 seconds. So it's basically a super powered, what's it called? Smoke Bomb. Smoke Bomb is just a flat damage reduction, you know, may it rest in peace. But this is a 15% chance for everyone inside of the darkness to not take damage. So over the course of like a raid, if you use it like twice and you're using it on like 10 people each time, you'll get a couple people that don't take any damage from an ability. That's the whole point, right? If it makes certain people immune to certain AoE effects or like Shadow Bolt volleys or whatever, then those people take 0 damage opposed to everyone taking damage but taking a bit less. So it's RNG. It could work a lot or work not at all, but that's your raid cooldown. And then you have Consume Magic. Consume Magic is your interrupt. It's range 20 yards, 15-second cooldown, where you'll interrupt the target spell casting and lock them from that school of magic for 3 seconds. Generates 50 pain on a successful interrupt. So if you are a Havoc Demon Hunter, they will have the same thing that generates Fury. Or a tank, a Vengeance tank, please make sure you're interrupting because your interrupt is super powerful. the fact that you gain half of your resource bar is a little scary good. So do not forget about how powerful interrupting can be now for the demon hunters. And lastly, your sigils. You have 4 of these. They look very pretty in your spellbook. They all do a different thing. They are all a 30-yard placement, and they all activate 2 seconds after they are placed down. I don't want to keep saying that line from the tooltip. So Sigil of Silence, 1 minute cooldown that will silence all enemies affected by the sigil for 6 seconds. So 6-second silence right there. Sigil of Misery. We'll go over here to these river beasts real quick. There's a hunter friend over here doing some testing. Hello, hunter friend. They changed the hunter's mark animation there a little bit. So Sigil of Misery is a cause all enemies affected by the sigil to cower in fear, disorienting them for 30 seconds. They do not get feared and move around like normal feared targets. It's basically a gigantic 1 minute cooldown AoE stun that is broken upon damage. But it's very, very, very powerful. Sigil of Flame is going to be your AoE damage, only a 30-second cooldown, where you deal initial fire damage and an additional amount over 6 seconds to enemies that are afflicted by the sigil. I know how you break. Yep. Let me just attack this Mushan here and keep going. Sigil of Chains is more or less your Gorfien's Grasp. So Gorfien's Grasp, as we know it, is now a 30-minute cooldown. A 3-minute cooldown for only the Blood Death Knight. What Sigil of Chains does is it places a Sigil of Chains at the target location and activates after 2 seconds, as they all do. All enemies affected by the sigil are pulled to its center and are snared, reducing their movement speed by 70% for 6 seconds. Let's grab this unsuspecting crab over here. Excuse me? I'm stuck. So, Sigil of Chains has the same radius as all the other sigils, but you have to make sure they're in the radius. If they're barely in, it still works, of course. But it works like this. Whoop whoop. So it is a 2-minute cooldown. Almost Death Grip-ish ability. The problem with Sigil of Chains is that because of its activation time, which you can talent into, and because of the fact that it is a drop aura and not just like a pull into yourself, but it is a lesser cooldown than the other one, which is going to be that's a real soul there. The other one being, my words right now, is that a Mass Grip, or the Gorfien's Grasp for blood decays. Oh man, the motorcycle is so good. So, Sigil of Chains is the only other version of like an AoE add pulling device or spell that you have in the game, outside of Mass Grip. So, very, very powerful tools for both the Blood DK and the Vengeance Demon Hunter. But again, a little more finicky, but less of a cooldown, so that's the trade-off you have there. But other than your last ability here, which is Metamorphosis, which I showed off a little earlier, this is a 3-minute cooldown where you transform into a demon for 15 seconds, increasing current and maximum health by 30% and generating 7 pain every 1 second. This gives you 105 pain, or a full pain bar plus a little bit extra over the 15 seconds you are actually in it. And the wording on that means that because it's current and max health, it's actually a heal. If it only gives you max health, it wouldn't actually affect your current. That's why it says current and max health. So right now, I'm like 60%, right? And I Metamorphosis, I'm going to heal myself for a little bit. Because you increase your current and max health by 30. But now, of course, you have the extra pain generation, so you can spam more soul cleaves. You do lose your war blades during this period of time, because you are a giant, big old demon hunter guy. There is a different demon hunter form for both the male and female demon hunters of both the Havoc and Vengeance variety. So they are different. There are 4 forms in total, 2 for Blood Elf, male and female, and 2 for Night Elf, male and female. If you didn't already know, demon hunters can only be Night Elves or Blood Elves. So that's the core rotation. You have sigils that are your utility. You have your raid cooldown utility. You have your 1 single personal cooldown. You have your rotational cooldowns in both your Empower Wards or your Demon Spikes. And then your big boy cooldown in Metamorphosis. You have your mobility, of course. Range pulling tool. The kit's pretty strong. All right. Let's toss on your Aldraki, Warblades. And we'll take a look at using and having a button that opens up your artifacts by themselves without having to worry about going into your character sheet and then shift right-clicking on an artifact is right here. So make sure that your tooltip picture is the question mark. That way it reacts to the show tooltip 16. And then it's /run space socket inventory item open parentheses 16 close parentheses semicolon. And that will give you the button to just blop. As long as they're equipped, it works. We start right here in the middle with Soul Carver. 1 minute cooldown where you carve into the soul of your target, dealing fire damage instantly, an additional amount over 3 seconds. It immediately shatters off 2 lesser soul fragments from the target and 1 additional lesser soul fragment every 1 second. So to also compound the fact that you cannot have more than 5 lesser souls, let's grab some souls here. We have 2. Now if I use Soul Carver, you'll see the souls flying out there, but you see the souls getting replaced. You only have 5 in total, but then you can, of course, soul cleave and pull in all those juicy, juicy souls. So it is just on-hit fire damage and a small fire damage dot. Well, I guess not small. But then you also get 2 fragments immediately and then 3 more over the next 3 ticks of the damage. So rotationally, it only does to a target, doesn't AoE. The animation looks like an AoEs around you because you spin around, but that's just because it's flare. But yeah, so Soul Carver. Good stuff, rotational. It'll work well with other talents later on that utilize souls in different ways, so remember that, and also used as burst healing when you need to. Tormented Souls. My hunter friend over there making noise. Increase the damage dealt by Soul Cleave by 10%. It's fine, you're going to use a lot of Soul Cleaves. Shatter the Souls, which is just shattered souls, shatter the souls. Shear is a 15% increased chance to shatter a lesser soul fragment from your target while you're below half health. This just multiplies the chance to get a soul fragment, a lesser soul fragment, and again, refer to that post in my Google document below to see the actual math involved in shattering souls with shear. It's like a weird stacking, like roulette chance that resets every time you actually shatter off a soul. So all this would do is that the lower your health is after 50% or lower, you get a higher chance to actually gain this. Siphon Power, another ability called Siphon Power. Empowered Wards increases your agility by up to 15% for 10 seconds based on magic damage you take while it is active. So Empowered Wards only last for 6 seconds, so if you use it properly to soak up a bunch of magic damage, either AoE or single target, of course, you will gain more agility. For a 10-second window is actually a lot, so you'll gain more dodge and attack power when you Siphon Power properly, which is a cool synergy, utilizing your magic absorption or magic reduction spell properly. Fiery Demise is that Fiery Brand also increases your fire damage you deal to the target by 30%. So while you have Fiery Brand on the target now, they have a debuff that they will take 30% more fire damage from you. So now this makes your offensive single target ability to take less damage from a target actually make you do more damage to them, which will then compound later on even more for abilities that heal you. We have the Aldraki Design, increases the chance to parry by 3%. We got like 10.8% chance to parry right now. Again, you only gain parry from either trinkets that give you parry or from your critical strike rating also gives you parry as well. Demonic Flames will increase the duration of Fiery Brand by 2 seconds. So Fiery Brand before only lasted for 8 seconds, now it lasts for 10. So you gain more time for Fiery Demise to be active, and more time, of course, for the 40% less damage taken to your face. Aura of Pain increases the damage dealt by Immolation Aura by 9%, which is fine. It's one to be your main buttons. After you gain more haste, you're going to have Aura, Immolation Aura up a whole lot more often. So the extra damage to that is beneficial, of course. Honed Warblades increase the damage dealt by Shear by 9%. Pretty self-explanatory there. Will of the Illidari will increase your maximum health by 3%. So you already see that I went from... I have a fully empowered artifact, right? But 1.6 million all the way up to almost 3 million. That's, of course, factoring in the additional stamina from the actual passive on 34 for the Warblade themselves. And then, of course, the 3% increased health from Will of the Illidari. Devour Souls will increase Soul Cleave's heal by an additional 9%. So again, that Soul Cleave has a flat heal whenever you use it, kind of like a Blood Strike mechanic, right? Or a Death Strike, I should say. Or Blood Strike, or Heart Strike, whatever the heck it's called. Everything for the Blood DK heals them. They take damage and they get healed for everything. There are lots of healing that comes into play with the Vengeance Demon Hunter as well. I would say it's still less than Blood DKs, though. Alright. Infernal Forces increase the damage dealt by Infernal Strike by 15%. Again, why it can be kind of used for AoE is it actually is pretty potent. So using it for AoE damage would probably be beneficial. I don't think you use it on single target, though. Defensive Spikes increases your chance to parry by an additional 10% for the first 3 seconds after activating Demon Spikes. This is currently bugged right now. We figured this out during the live stream. That right now, what happens if you refresh Demon Spikes immediately, when it falls off, right here, you have 30% parry, and then it goes down to 20% parry. If you refresh it early, you don't gain the 10% again. It could be bugged, or it could be intentional to never, like, chain cast Demon Spikes, which would be kind of lame. But overall, you always gain 20% parry from Demon Spikes. Right, so on the tooltip, it doesn't read anything different. It just says 20% parry. But when you actually use the ability, because of the artifact perk, you do gain 30% parry. So pretty nice there for the first couple of seconds. And then Embrace the Pain increases the maximum health gain from Metamorphosis by an additional 15%. This means you'll now be gaining 45% current and max HP. So a huge jump in HP now. 3.3 million HP. Which is pretty insane. And again, all your spell effects, your animations change when you are in metaform. Just so you are aware. Which is pretty cool. Your claws still sound like shear when you use it though, but your soul cleave does not sound like soul cleave. So I don't know why it does that, but such as it is. Get a little frame droppy going on here in the beta right now. So your leveling path for the Aldraki Warblades is very simple, honestly. You're gonna go right here, you're gonna go all the way down this way, and you're gonna grab Fueled by Pain. You have a chance to activate Metamorphosis for 5 seconds each time you consume a soul fragment. This is a flat roll chance, a very small roll chance. I think the forum threads also say about this. Per soul that you eat. Either the same one, it's all just depending on whatever one you eat, it doesn't matter. But that's what you saw earlier when I was shattering off some souls. That every time I ate one, I had a chance to go into meta, so you can just walk over them, right? There you go. This happens a lot. When you're in this little 5-second metamorphosis form, you do gain the HP bonus, and you do gain the 5 seconds of 7 pain per second, which is very good. You're gonna bounce over here, boom, 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 like pinball, into Charred Warblade, which is you heal for 15% of all fire damage you deal. So I've tested all the abilities that do fire damage. They all heal you properly. I actually reverse engineered some math on the VOD. If you go check that out if you want to. Toward the end of the VOD, we get very mathy with some other talents with healing. It was like an hour of reverse engineering all the math and seeing what actually happens with versatility. And on that note, versatility that increases your damage will increase, of course, the damage you deal, thusly giving you a higher amount of damage dealt that heals you for fire damage. However, versatility does not increase the healing from Charred Warblades. In all of my testing, it does not. The damage does, the healing does not. You have another ability I'll show off later as a talent that is increased in healing by versatility. But now, because you have the extra Fiery Demise, and you have the extra Demonic Flames going on here, and you have the extra Aura of Pain, for example, you have all these bonuses to fire damage, so the Charred Warblades overall, just like trickle healing, is very important. And it gives even more burst healing now to Soul Carver, because the initial damage, and of course the fire damage dot it lays out as well. So Charred Warblades is just a passive leech on all your fire damage. So actually, if you get lucky and you get some leech rolls for tertiary stats on your gear, even better. Because again, your job as a tank now in Legion, because you cannot survive everything anymore, is to smooth incoming damage. And this helps quite a bit. Then you'll come all the way back around here. You might just go from Tormented Souls, bound over here, and then pick these up later. That just depends on you. Devour Souls and Will of the Illidari are really good, though. So you might, like, go this way and then come back down. But again, it all depends. Your first 13 artifact traits are very, very, very cheap. And then, like, the first 30% is very cheap. The middle 30% gets a little bit dicey, it gets a little bit more expensive. The last 30% of leveling up your artifact is very expensive. But your last golden dragon you'll go to is Painbringer, which is that each soul fragment you consume reduces all damage you take by 3% for 4 seconds. So you can only ever normally consume 5 soul fragments. If you're in combat, normally you can only have 5, unless you kill something. So this will be a 15% damage reduction. We'll just show it off right now with, of course, Soul Carver. So when you yank in all of these souls, you get a little buff and a little aura around you. It's right there. So 15% less damage taken. It's a little aura floating around, a little orb. That is the Painbringer little bonus there. So, yeah. Why it's your last one to gain is going to be really easy to know that it's just kind of like it's just a small window of time, but it is all damage. So it's good to get after you're really looking at that progression point. Leveling up your entire artifact for anyone will probably take between 6 to 10 weeks, depending on how crazy you are about leveling. The bonuses of Fueled by Pain, obviously, and Embrace the Pain are going to be incredibly beneficial, but you're not going to be able to get Embrace the Pain until much later because the bonuses in this corner are very, very, very important early on. But that is your Warblades. They give you a lot of benefit, good amount of extra damage, good amount of extra healing. I think the perks are also really good too. They have interactions that pay attention to Charred Warblades, or Fueled by Pain is a lot of fun, and of course gives you more mitigation when you are tanking. And then Painbringer later on when you're actually working on that much harder content down to that Mythic Nighthold style. But you should have your fully empowered artifact for one of them by, I would imagine, end of December, January timeframe. Hopefully the Nighthold comes out in January, and we have the Emerald Nightmare for the first 3 months, and then we get 3 months of the Nighthold, then we get the next raid patch sometime in the spring of next year. That'd be nice. I think each raid tier should last between 6 to 8 months, so that would be wonderful timing. But it'll take you that long to get a fully empowered artifact, so you'll have all this done before the Nighthold comes out, I imagine, if it's in January, so don't worry too much, but obviously the first tier is going to be a little bit more dicey. Alright. Talent-wise. I'm just going to go through these one at a time. There really isn't anything that's going to like jump out at me. Like there's a couple builds that show up after a certain amount of time. But for the most part, everything is a little bit straightforward. And it all comes down to just pairing what you like to need for a certain encounter. What you like to need. Words. What you need to, satisfy the needs of a certain encounter. Abyssal Strike is Infernal Strike's range is increased by 10 yards. So it's now 40-yard range. And cooldown reduced by 5 seconds. So now it's a 15-second recharge for your 2 charges and a 40-yard range. Way over here. And way over here. So, extra mobility and extra damage technically because you'll be able to use more Abyssal Strikes during out the entire course of a raid encounter. Agonizing Flames is being toned down when the pre-patch comes out, but Immolation Aura increases your movement speed by 30%. And deals a 50% increased damage. Ideally, it's going down to like 30% increased damage or 25 increased damage because it's way too good right now. It's way too good. I mean, you're going to have Immolation Aura up so much the times they had to reduce this because it's almost like a duh pick in this tier. Like you just like, I'm just going to take Agonizing Flames forever. It gives me a short form sprint and it does more damage and it heals me for more. Yeah, sure. Why not? So there's the sprint effect right there. Yeah, zigzags. And then Razor Spikes is, while Demon Spikes are active, you will deal 20% increased physical damage, and your melee attacks snare targets for 50% for 6 seconds. So, anything you do will snare targets. The biggest benefit of this, of course, is utilizing Razor Spikes with Soul Cleave to help you kite. Because when you Soul Cleave everything in front of you, like a whole bunch of ads, for example, in a dungeon or a raid, they'll all be snared for 50% for 6 seconds. This is your only actual snare in your entire toolkit. Your only other way to CC things, of course, will be to take a talent called Fell Eruption or using your Sigil of Misery. So Razor Spikes is you're going to be for your snare, and only active, of course, when you are in the Demon Spike window. But the extra physical damage comes into play with a certain build that I'll show off later. Feast of Souls is very simple. Soul Cleave will heal you for an additional amount over 6 seconds. This does increase by versatility because it's a heal. So right now it's at 79.6, for example. Put these both on. Goes up to 82.344. So there's that. But it's just an attack power-based heal, I believe. And it is just extra trickle healing. So combining with this and, of course, Charred Warblades, more talents, you just get more healing. Could be great for leveling because just you stay, topped off more often. Fallout is Immolation Aura's initial burst. It's a chance to shatter lesser soul fragments from enemies. Let me see real quick here. Yeah, we got 2. So depending on how lucky you are with an AoEing lots of things, oops, you know, using Fallout on large packs of ads is a chance to give you lots of soul fragments. Got 1 right there. So that it could be helpful because Feast of Souls is a flat heal. It never changes, but Fallout can give you more soul fragment, lesser soul fragments if you're tanking multiple mobs. And Burning Alive is that every 2 seconds your fiery brand, I don't know why my bees are so bubbly today. Your fiery brand deals fire damage and spreads from the primary target to a nearby enemy. So this has the same like spread mechanic as your glaive toss, for example, where every 2 seconds of the 10 seconds it lasts, it will deal damage and then it'll spread to a nearby target. So you want to make sure that you have targets for it to spread to. If I put Fiery Brand on this middle dummy, it would spread to the right or the left and then stop. But however, if I put Fire Brand over here, it'll tick damage, it'll spread, this will tick damage, and it'll spread. It should spread. Is that too far away? Oh, I have it backwards, don't I? I think I have this backwards. That's why I was confused on stream. Okay, it's the reverse. It has to be from the primary target. So it does not bounce like your glaives. All right. Well, I'm a big dum-dum. But the bonus of Burning Alive is that every 2 seconds, and again, it lasts for 10 seconds as your fiery brand, it will last for, you'll be able to actually put it on 1 target, and then because it will tick 5 more times, it'll go up on 5 more targets. So Burning Alive is good for multiple tanking in a way that you can debuff multiple mobs in an AoE pack, for example, or like a boss that has like 2 or 3 of them, for example. The crazy tree guy in the Nighthold, which I can't open my dungeon journal on this character for some reason. The adventure guide is not implemented yet on Demon Hunters. Fiery Brand is good to multi-target and get multiple fiery brands, reducing the damage you take. So yeah, now doing it correctly, putting on a target that actually can spread. Now it should spread to this one, and then again from this one to spread to, oh, there we go. Yes, okay, there we go. So the reverse of what I said. So it has to spread for the primary target, and each time it spreads, it does have a duration left over from how long it spread from. So it actually lasts for a very long time when it does kind of like trickle down through the mobs. But it only spread 1 time from the primary target to a nearby enemy, and nearby means 8 yards. So AoE tanking, and so is Fallout as well. Then Feast of Souls kind of for patchwork fights. I don't know. You know, these are all interchangeable talents based on what you need. I have Gluttony right now, which is consuming a soul fragment will increase the damage of your next soul cleave by 10% up to 5 stacks. So this gives you more physical damage, which is okay. So now if you use your like Soul Carver, for example, and you get a whole bunch of shards out, and you pop your Demon Spikes for more physical damage and Razor Spikes, and you'll get like a larger, you know, Soul Cleave, for example. But you have to eat the soul shards first, and then it empowers your next soul cleave. So it's okay. It's kind of like awkwardly rotational, that it doesn't do a whole lot, it feels like. But it could be really good on fights that have lots of ads. Because you take Fallout, for example, and you can, every time you immolate, you might get a ton of lesser soul fragments. You pull those in with a soul cleave during Razor Spikes when you're kiting them, and then your next soul cleave, if you do them back to back, for example, or within quick succession, will do a lot more AoE damage. So it's not bad. It's just not like it's not amazing, I guess I should say, but it is a possibility if you want to go with that more physical damage route. Flame Crash, which I mispronounce all the time because it's a tongue twister. Flame Crash. Flame Crash makes your Infernal Strike create a sigil of flame where you land. This Sigil of Flame does benefit from the sigil bonuses down below, which we'll look at a little bit. But now this gives your mobility tool and your damage tool even more damage. And do note that the Sigil of Flame, because it's actually a very short dot, it doesn't really pandemic because 30% of 6 is like an integer. It's like a very, very small number. So you can't really pandemic Sigil of Flame in any meaningful way. So laying them together, like one after another, is the bonus of this. But I think Flame Crash on a single target would be okay. But really, this just shines a lot when you actually can AoE multiple things. You can keep up more AoE because now, with 2 charges of Flame Crash, and your regular Sigil of Flame, you can actually keep a 100% uptime with your Flame Dot, for example. So here's one, you know. Then I can jump at like almost the halfway mark, a little after. And that where you apply it. And then I'll wait my next one comes up right off cooldown here, and we'll jump on this one. It's almost 100% uptime. You know, and that'll tick here. And then this will fall off. I'll only have like a couple seconds left on my other Sigil of Flame. So you see what I mean? You can rotate this through to have almost a permanent Flame Dot. Which again, remember, your fire damage does heal you. That's pretty good. And then Fellblade is going to be cut down a little bit damage-wise in the patch. But 15-second cooldown, just like your Immolation Aura. And your recharge on Demon Spike. So again, haste, super important for the Vengeance Demon Hunter. I think to a point. But you can have one charge of this, where you charge your target up to 15 yards away and deal fire damage. That'll heal you. And Sheer has a chance to reset the cooldown of Fellblade. So Fellblade's like a micro charge. It looks awesome. And of course, Sheer can reset it. I don't know what the actual chance on Sheer resetting it is. But the main benefit of Fellblade is that it is movement plus limited healing and then plus pain generation. So the more pain you have, the more times you can use your Soul Cleave. Which means the more times you can use Soul Cleave, the more times you can heal yourself. So, but they're going to cut down the damage a little bit, so now it'll probably be weaker than Sheer damage-wise in the patch. Because right now it does too much damage. It's like too reliable. But Fellblade is fun. It does give you another button on your bars. You're about to be overwhelmed here the next couple of tiers. My one complaint with the Vengeance Demon Hunter, is that you have too many buttons. I almost feel like they gave you too many abilities where you're going to have like almost 9 rotational buttons. And you're a tank, remember, so your main priority is to DPS properly, but then also make sure you're not dying. So, Fellblade is fun. Depends on the encounter. I think Gluttony is kind of like, eh. But maybe Gluttony is only good on fights where you can use Fallout and Razor Spikes and Gluttony. But otherwise, I would just take Flame, Crash, or Fellblade all the time just for the rotational components. Soul Rending, very simple. You gain 50% leech while Metamorphosis is active. Very, very impactful for certain fights where you know you're going to utilize your Metamorphosis for like a gigantic cooldown window. Because when you stack this extra leech while you're in Metamorphosis, and it also stacks with your Charred Warblades, because then you'll get the fire damage healing you from this, and all your other damage healing you from Soul Rending as well. It's a lot of self-sustain. Feed the Demon is that consuming a soul fragment reduces your cooldown remaining on your demon spikes by 1 second. It's kind of a quality of life thing. Maybe good for a patchwork fight, because you'll be utilizing eating your soul fragments a lot more often to keep your demon spikes active all the time. Because when you chunk in and eat those delicious soul fragments, you do gain the cooldown reduction on your... Maybe a bunch of these real quick, and I'll double tap my demon blades right here so you can see them. Now, if I pull in all of these, watch the cooldown, it'll be 5 seconds off. Whoop. So, just more uptime with Feed the Demon on your Razor Spikes or your Demon Spikes overall. So, beneficial there. Probably for like a patchwork fight, I imagine. Or again, maybe an AoE fight where you're using Fallout to gain more Lesser Soul Fragments. And then you have, Razor Spikes up, or Agonizing Flames for movement and kiting. I don't know. But Feed the Demon is good. A lot of these talents are just like, they're good. And like you don't have like a set path. You're like, that could be good. Yeah, that could be good too. Fracture, another button to add to your bars. So, Fracture is a lot of fun, and it synergizes well with the next talent tiers in 108 and 110. So, Fracture costs 40 pain, which is very expensive, which I kind of think you have to take Fellblade if you're using this. Fracture does heavy physical damage to the target, and shatters off 2 lesser soul fragments. Also looks pretty awesome, too. So, Fracture rotationally gives you less soul cleaves because you're going to be utilizing the pain to give yourself fractures, but it gives you more beneficial amounts of souls so that whenever you do use soul cleave, you can also gain the benefit of a larger heal, which makes you wonder, like, well, maybe Gluttony's better now. And Razor Spikes on top of it too, because you can almost make sure that every other soul cleave is buffed by many lesser soul fragments. But I think overall, the main benefit of this is you can control your lesser soul fragments, right? You can control the usage of them. You can always have, 2, 3, 4 sitting around most of the time. And of course, as you take damage, let me go over here. as you take damage properly as a tank, you'll have more pain generated, right? So you can utilize this to greater effect to actually pull out a lot more souls more frequently. But it is, of course, on the same tier that Feed the Demons on, so you can't utilize that awkwardly. But because it does give this, it gives you more control over Painbringer. So don't let that, you know, slip your mind. But overall, the Vengeance Demon Hunter is very, very squishy, and they require healing quite a lot, actually. I'm getting a little bit torn apart by this dummy right now. Let's go Metamorphosis real quick. So it's not bad, but I mean, you're also you're a tank, right? So it gets overwhelming because you have to pay attention to so many little things that DPSing properly to keep yourself alive as a tank is going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I don't think any other tank I've tested has been this difficult to like understand as you're going through the rotation, because you're like, okay, I gotta fracture, I gotta put Evolution Orb, I gotta shear, I gotta Fell Blade, I gotta make sure I time my healer, I gotta put Demon Spice, I gotta time my Empowered Words, I gotta possibly put that on my sigils and move and jump away from something, or tank swap. Like, it's all the little things that you're paying attention to, which is, you know, engaging if you love that, but it also can be a little overwhelming for a new player. That's why I've been saying to people that I would not take Vengeance as your first tanking class if you've never played tank before, due to the fact that it's a little bit like, oh my goodness. You can take an easier build, sure, but if you want to take a higher, like, APM build, actions per minute build, there are definitely options for you there. Fell Eruption is a 35-second 10 pain costing single target stun that does heavy chaos damage and stuns target for 2 seconds. It'll inflict double damage on targets that are immune to stuns. So they hit for how much? Yeah, 180,000 damage, just double damage. So single target stun has a 20-yard range as well, has high damage against bosses, but it depends. If it's a single target boss fight and you don't need the other sigil talents, then you could take Fell Eruption due to the fact that it does do pretty significant rotational damage. Your other options here are now your concentrated or quickened sigils talent. These were on other tiers before, but now they are broken apart. Concentrated sigils is that all sigils are now targeted at your location, and the duration of their effect is increased by 2 seconds. So the duration of the increase means that the Sigil of Chains snare lasts longer. The Sigil of Flame will last 8 seconds, up from 6. Misery lasts 32 seconds, up from 30, right? Because it's only 2 seconds. And Sigil of Silence is an 8-second silence now instead of a 6-second silence, but again, they cast at you. Right? So you have to make sure you are casting them properly because they are casted at you. Of course, you could just, like, you know, jump in and then put a sigil down, right? It's totally fine. You can even, like, you know, float over, you know, and then jump in, whatever you're gonna do, and then put your sigils down. I understand the benefit of concentrated sigils. I don't like it personally. I like being able to toss them and throw them at places for the mobility benefit there. And that's why you can take quickened sigils, is that all sigils activate 1 second faster. So they all have a 1 second activation time now, and their cooldowns are all reduced by 20%. So now you have a 1.6 minute cooldown on Chains, a 24 on Flame, a 48 on Misery, and a 48 on Silence. And they all activate very fast. And yes, this does work with Flame Crash as well for your Sigil of Flame. Now your Sigil will activate even faster. So I like Quicken Sigils or Fell Eruption myself, personally. But again, these are all good options. You're just like, dang, these are good talents. I'll just take whatever I want, you know? So that's wonderful to have. I've had Blade Turning on this entire time, where parrying an attack will increase the pain generation of your next shear by 50%. Blade Turning, to me, is the safe passive, because you will parry attacks, and then you will be casting shear, and your shear will give you 5 more pain. More pain means more soul cleaves. Or more fractures. Sure. And as you gain more crit, you'll gain more passive parry. Of course, you'll want to keep up your demon spikes all the time anyway, so you're going to have around 40% parry for the first couple of seconds, and then 30% parry after that. So Blade Turning is fine. I think the best benefit of this might be for when you're AoE tanking, because then you can parry lots of attacks and keep up that extra shear generation for more razor spikes, maybe even gluttony shears, or soul cleaves rather. So, I don't know. It's okay. Fel Devastation, however, is fantastic. Fel Devastation is the equivalent to I-Beam on the Havoc Demon Hunter, or on the Vengeance Demon Hunter. It costs 30 pain. It is a 2-second channel. In the 2 seconds, you'll actually hit the one target 10 times, 5 times per second. The channel is reduced by haste, as you see here. 1 minute cooldown, where you damage all enemies directly in front of you for a large amount of fire damage over that amount of time. That does charred Warblades. And it will also causes damage to also heal you for about double the damage, not exactly double, for that amount of health. That amount of health is based not on the damage at all, it is built on the actual spell itself. You cannot move while channeling Fel Devastation, just like you cannot move while channeling I-Beam, but instead of it coming out of your face, it comes out of your mouth. So you're basically like the Riku Boom or the Nappa Mouth Beam from Dragon Ball Z, which is pretty awesome looking. You can pivot, I'll show you one more time, you can pivot around with Fel Devastation, but you cannot actually move left or right or back or forth or whatever. So, but again, you see right here that Fel Devastation will tick very, very fast. Charred Warblades will also heal you, and so does each tick of Fel Devastation as well. So this is a very gigantic 1 minute cooldown to do a lot of AoE damage or single target damage and heal you for a lot. And you can also stack Soul Rending on top of this to use Fel Devastation while you are in Metamorphosis form to make your combat log explode. So when it comes back off cooldown, we will show this off real quick. But I like Fel Devastation a lot because I like having another cooldown, not only for damage, but also for healing. So that's how I see it utilized properly, is if you utilize it in that regard. But also it just looks amazing. So let's just drop down to like 50% health here or something like that. All right, so we'll go into meta, and we will breathe over the sky. All right. So my combat log exploded. So Fel Devastation kept healing me. Charred Warblade was healing me as well. And then, oh, actually, you know what? I don't know if I had the Leech benefit on that at all. Oh, there it is. Leech has like a window of time where it ticks only every second. So yes. So the Leech also was healing me for almost 100,000 as well. So coupling Soul Rending and Fel Devastation together gives you a gigantic cooldown to be used while you already are in a gigantic cooldown, because you do gain the extra heal from everything coupled together. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Because again, Fel Devastation ticks so fast, Leech only ticks every second. So it has to wait for all that damage to actually happen. So yeah, huge, huge, huge cooldown synergy there, if you so will it. But I think Fel Devastation looks incredibly impressive. Lots of fun to use. Good damage, good healing. But again, 1 minute cooldown, so you can use it so many times in the encounter. And then Spirit Bomb. Honestly, I have no idea. There's more math on Spirit Bomb in my notes. The Frailty debuff was changed recently to be a 10% offensive debuff leech on targets affected by the Spirit Bomb. But what you do is you launch a Soul Fragment at your target, dealing shadow damage to all nearby enemies, so 8 yards around the target you actually hit, and inflicting them with Frailty for 15 seconds. And then you heal for 10% of the damage you deal to enemies with Frailty. So the biggest synergy of Spirit Bomb right off the bat is going to be AoE tanking, because when you use Spirit Bomb, right? The casting Demon Hunter is healed for 10% of the damage they deal to you. If you're Spirit Bombing a bunch of Scorpion ads, for example, you'll then heal for 10% of all the damage you do to all of those ads. But again, this also means that you have to maintain this Frailty debuff almost all the time. You can use it for burst healing, like if you actually just spam Spirit Bombs in a row, which you can. You heal for the Spirit Bomb damage and the Spirit Bomb heal on yourself as well. It gives you a ranged ability because it does have some range associated with it. If you are within range of your what's the range on it again? It's 40 yards. Yeah, you have to be in range of your little. Oh, damn it! I don't want to eat you. No. The movement to eat your soul fragments is very, very, very close range. Let me try to get some soul fragments again that I don't get to know. I don't want to eat you. So you do have like a ranged ability now, which otherwise all you have is your glaive toss, but you can be like, ooh, Spirit Bomb. But soul fragments only have a 20-yard range to be like near you is 20 yards. You can be 40 yards away if you have soul fragments near you when you're like really far away, and you can throw spirit bombs at different things. But it kind of replaces the soul cleave component, because if you have less souls, you're going to be soul cleaving for less. But then you maintain the spirit bomb buff, and then you gain more overall healing. Now, as I said earlier, spirit bomb does increase damage based on all of your stats, of course. Like, it's attack power base plus your versatility. The spirit bomb healing that you heal yourself from doing damage to the debuff target is amplified by versatility. Okay? But again, Charred Warblades does not double dip. Charred Warblades healing is amplified by the damage component of versatility, but the healing is just from that damage. You don't get to do more damage, and then 15% of that damage is then calculated on top of your versatility. No. But Spirit Bomb means that the 10% healing you do from the target is amplified by your versatility, which I'll show up over here with these trinkets real quick. Let me go back and grab Fellblade, because again, to show you the healing amount. So let me grab some damage taken real quick on this train dummy. Sort of. Hello? This guy's the weaker one, but I don't want to die while tanking this, and I want to show like small amounts of healing. So if I utilize... Let me go over here and take more damage from this one first. Alright, let me grab some souls here. Damn it. Okay, damage taken. Good stuff. Alright, so if I put Spirit Bomb up on this target right here. Okay, no, I ate that one. Damn you! Maybe I'll use my... here we go. Yeah, good. Okay. Now, if you turn yourself 90 degrees from the target, your auto attacks won't work, but your specials will. So there is one Fellblade, right? So Fellblade hit for fire damage. The Charred Warblades, again, is 15% of the damage dealt. The damage is amplified by versatility, but not by your actual healing amount. And Spirit Bomb healing is another percent of this. But if you're doing math in your head right now, 7,000 is definitely not only 10% of Fellblade. Okay. I'm going to come real quick here so I can put my trinkets on. Put on my 2 versatility trinkets. I will go over here and do the exact same thing. Showing you with just a Fellblade hit on top of it. Let me get a soul. You put a debuff on you. Okay. Stop auto-attacking. So right there, Spirit Bomb. I mean, that was a critical strike, so that's probably not a good example. It's going to not critical strike. How about that? Much better. So now the same, like, 62,000-ish damage. Back up here was 60,000 for 7,000 healing. Now you look back here at the 62,000 for 93. Because I added my versatility trinkets on. So I have more healing received by, by like 4 more %. So it took a while to like reverse engineer all this numbers to actually go over the fact that versatility increases certain healing, but not all of it. Versatility increases your healing you get from your orbs, like your lesser fragments as well. But, oops. But overall, it was weird to find out what didn't double dip with your Spirit Bomb and Charred Warblades. So, that is that out of the way. Last Resort is very simple. It is a Vengeance Demon Hunter cheat death. Sustaining fatal damage will instead transform you into a Metamorphosis form. It gives all the benefits of Metamorphosis. It lasts for 15 seconds. Only recur and returns you to 30% health. The effect has a 3-minute internal cooldown. So go here and basically die to this guy real quick. And you'll see me, I will go into Metaform. Automatically, there will be a debuff put on my character. And it's fine. You can gain the benefit of Soul Rending. You can gain every benefit you gain from your artifact from this Metamorphosis form. You gain the pain generation, all that good stuff. Here we go, and pop. There we go. So I'm gaining the Leech when I'm in this form as well. All the damage, all the healing. But again, you have a 3-minute cooldown right here on Contained Fell. So right there. Yeah. But good for progression. It's a cheat death mechanic. It's a built-in passive. Whoops doodle, I almost died during this part of this encounter. I need a Tom swap earlier or whatever have you. So that could be very beneficial for you. Indeed. Nether Bond is a you plus one other target spirit link totem. That's just SLT. So 40-yard range, 2-minute cooldown where you bind yourself to a friendly player for 15 seconds. Every 1 second, the health of you and your target is redistributed such that you are at the same percentage of maximum health. So fights that have like a Saber Lash effect or some like weird frontal cleave nonsense, you could like Nether Bond your tank And then like they could hopefully take the whole thing and you could just share health pools with them for the 15 seconds to make sure they don't die. Or if you're soaking some tank mechanic or something far away, you're taking a whole bunch of damage, you can nether bond like one of your other raid members that has really good cooldowns, that they can put their cooldowns up, right? So they can reduce their damage taken from other sources so they don't take too much damage. But you can use their health pool to share with yours so that you're both not gonna die, or that mostly you're not gonna die. But I can't really show this nether bond off at all because I don't have another person right here to show it off with. But just think of it as a one target plus yourself spirit link totem. And then soul barrier. Soul barrier is basically guard, but it's better, okay? It's... all the brewmasters watching right now went like, ah, my guard! Soul barrier costs 30 pain on a 20-second cooldown. Alright? So you can't really abuse it very much because it has only used twice a minute. You shield yourself for 8 seconds, absorbing an amount of damage. Consuming a soul fragment will add additional absorbing to the shield, and soul barrier's absorption cannot be reduced below 40.823%. That's attack power based plus versatility modifiers, and it consumes all soul fragments within 20 yards. So anything that counts as consuming a soul fragment on any of your other talents or any of your other artifact perks is utilized with soul barrier. Soul barrier kind of takes the place of soul cleaves every so often. You know, twice a minute or so often, you know, somewhere in there. Up to 3 times a minute, but you're on the minute mark at 20, so, you know, whatever. Twice a minute, effectively. The whole soul barrier's absorption cannot be reduced below a certain amount means that if you put up soul barrier and it's like 500,000, right? You eat soul barrier, you eat 4 or 5 lesser soul fragments at the same time, you add 200,000 additional shielding, you have 500,000 shield, and the boss immediately chunks you for all of it in one hit. But you'll still actually have a 40,000 absorb on the next couple of hits, because in that window of time, that 8 seconds, if you absorb other fragments, like if you fracture them off and then absorb them, like walk into them, it'll add that additional absorbing to the effect. This is very hard to show off without like an actual raid encounter and like heals, because this guy like kind of wrecks my day. But for example, if you fracture off, you know, some souls, again, more fracture synergies, and then you pop your barrier. Let's make sure I have 5 souls. Okay, we have 5 souls now. Aren't we good? So yank this off. You know, we got a huge 600,000 shield, but it goes away immediately. But see, the shield is still there. So now if again, it'd have souls up immediately to do this again. You have to walk into them when they're active. Wait for one more. If I don't die to this guy real quick here. My goodness. Try to heal myself a little bit. All right, soul barrier is up. Let me get some souls. For some reason, I have souls that are not lesser and greater for some reason. So we'll eat this. We'll try to grab our souls. Nope, we died. See, you get the point that because it has a bit of a duration on the base absorb amount, if you do shatter off in that very small window of time, shatter off some more souls to eat and like grab into your soul barrier. Like if you actually use a soul barrier and then utilize soul carver, your artifact ability, and then throw up a soul cleave to eat more souls, that'll add absorption to the soul barrier overall. Because in that window of time, it still exists. So it's... But again, now you can see we've got through all this stuff, and now you have a lot of stuff to worry about, right? Because you have maybe Fellblade resets, fracture timing, uptime on razor spikes, utilizing your empowered wards properly, your main 2 cooldowns with your sigil and your metamorphosis properly, keeping up immolation aura, keeping down your correct damage sigil, or utilizing your utility sigils, jumping around for mobility. Like, there's so many little things to pay attention to if you love this kind of like almost overwhelming tanking paradigm that the Vengeance Demon Hunter does utilize, and that could be for you. And I'm definitely going to be playing some of this as my, you know, ult probably, because I'll be tanking a little bit on my I'll be playing Havoc as my main ult most likely. But Vengeance looks a lot of fun. I like Prot Paladin and Prot Warrior too, but I think the difference in there is just that you just kind of like block and heal yourself or block and absorb stuff. And there are so many little different nuances to make sure you're paying attention to and stacking talents properly or timing windows on Vengeance to smooth out damage properly. But that is the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Please leave a like on this video if you enjoyed this little walkthrough, primer, preview. Correct me on things that I'm wrong about. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Vengeance Demon Hunter in total. If you made it through the entire video, please leave me your best demon names for demon hunters. What would you name your Vengeance Demon Hunter? It could be terrible. It could be incredibly clever. It can be super awkward, but leave me your best demon hunter names. You know, like calling a mage Legolas, which is like, excuse me, what? But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Check the video description box below if you have any more need and thirst for information. There are blue posts down there and a couple of bugs that I did find. And I will see you all in the next Legion testing video.